So I'm going to spare you the PowerPoint, and I'm just going to talk a little bit with the intent of keeping my remarks really short so that we can have a conversation later, because I think the dynamics of a conversation around this topic is perhaps more interesting. But I'll tell you a little bit about what we do at Heifer. So we call it values-based holistic community development. And all of those words matter. This is the way we approach community-led development. The values that we employ are captured in what we call the 12 cornerstones, and I invite you to go to the website and check them out. And the values range all the way from, and this is the little thing that we hand out, little book mark, everything from spirituality, and by spirituality we don't mean religion, but we mean a sense of developing a sense of connectedness, which we have found in all of our work, 20, 30 years worth of work, is critically important to actually create a sense of community, so that adoption and movement out of, I think what we can call the deep depression that we find a lot of very poor communities are in, either individually or as groups. It's kind of an odd and very sad kind of phenomenon that you come across, and that has to be solved at the individual level. And all the way to passing on the gift, which you've heard is sort of a signature activity on the part of Heifer. It's just a pay-forward kind of mechanism. And it includes accountability, sustainability, self-reliance, nutrition, income, a wide variety of things which are captured now in the SDGs. The way we approach the process is we create groups, small groups. We spend time with them around the 12 cornerstones, and begin to build a commitment, an individual commitment, beginning with an individual escape from depression. And I keep bringing that word up. We find, I'll just repeat that point, we find that many of the communities we work with are essentially clinically depressed and need to be elevated out of that and begin to see hope. So we move them from hopelessness to hopefulness. And that particular process can take 6 months, can take a year and a half. And I'll give you a sense of how we spend our budget. We're about $130 million operation. And I would say our programmatic, for our programmatic spending, around half, if not a little bit more than half, is actually spent on community development. People don't realize that's where the bulk of the money actually goes. Because if you don't spend that money, the transfer of assets, whether it be a cow or chickens or ducks or whatever it is, does not take. The animals die very quickly. So the fundamentals, we are actually a trading organization. We're a values-based, community-led organization, not an asset transfer organization. When I tell that to donors, they say, "What? I just gave you a cow. What's going on? Where's my cow?" I said, "Your cow is well taken care of because we've done the right training with the community." And then the next word in the values-based holistic community development is holistic. And I come from the private sector, and segmentation and targeting is sort of a fundamental of good marketing, good business practice. And we think at Heifer that it is absolutely the wrong thing to do. It's about community, and you have to involve those that are solid, robust, active, entrepreneurial with those folks that are less active, less able to take care of themselves, and bring the whole community forward. And the mechanism we use for that is to be sure that the groups that are organized around the values-based holistic community development training are inclusive. They're generally all women, or mostly women, but always inclusive of every socioeconomic layer in that village or small town. That's a really important point. We find that if you target a small segment of the poor there, you end up essentially with an isolated group that simply is not able to connect across. That's just practical. I'll just make a couple more points. We, as John pointed out, we find that donors are simply not interested in funding this. We are exceptionally fortunate at Heifer to be able to raise money that is mostly unrestricted, which allows us to do this. And that is one of the reasons we have what we believe to be a very powerful model, which is now well supported with data on how to improve the economic outcomes of a particular program, as well as all of the social capital work that we do. Okay. As part of this process, we're now using randomized controlled testing in both Nepal and Ghana to test the importance of social capital development. So we're working with Yale University, working with the University of Georgia, and in both those cases, we're testing a wide variety, and it's all independent. It's the university is actually running the research. We're doing the programmatic work, and the results ought to be available maybe a year and a half from now. And with those data, we hope to be able to convince more donors that spending money there is indeed substantially productive. And John and I have talked about that. And of course, we'll be able to share that data very quickly. One more point about creating community linkages, and John put up a line up there talking about the scalability. What we're finding is that once you've got two points there in terms of how to scale it. You work at the unitary level. You work with single women, and you form a group, and then you, as part of the values that we have, one of the 12 cornerstones is sharing and caring, and we convince the original group, as we call them, to identify 3 or 4 out of the 20 or so to actually become agents to go teach other groups. And so there's an exponential effect that each group generates another 5 or 6 groups that then capture the learning from the first group. And we're tracking to see whether or not there's a dissipation or a decline in the quality of the teaching and the training from original group to what we call passing on group. And we're finding now that there is a small amount of decline, but actually the cost of doing it that way, if you know exponential arithmetic or mathematics, is fantastic, okay? And all we have to do is sort of recharge a little bit, third group out or something like that, and elevate the skill. So that's one thing. The other is, many of you I'm sure are involved with, especially in the food business, with value chains. And one of the tricks that is sort of surfaced on how to create community understanding and community commitment to building high-value, pro-poor, wealth-creating value chains is to do demand-driven analysis of the markets that these farmers could be involved in. So we have shifted our philosophy from being supply-driven or supply-driven development to being demand-driven development. One of the conditions to make sure that happens is to have simple yet accurate analysis of the value chains the farmers will get involved in, and to see and understand the inequities that exist in the value chains. There is a certain amount of anger that's generated out of that, and understanding that, wow, I'll give you the example on coffee. We're working in Guatemala up in the Huehuetenango area, and we were spending time actually describing the coffee chain, and the farmers were earning something like 32 cents a kilo, and Starbucks makes $28 per kilo. I'll end on that point.